This is the Holyoke City Council Finance Committee. I'd like to call it to order. My name is Joe McGiverin, the chair of the Finance Committee for the Council. Members present are Jim Lahey, City Councilor at Large, Peter Tallman, City Councilor at Large, Mike Sullivan, City Councilor at Large, and I believe we're going to be joined shortly by Ward 3 Councilor Dave Bartley, who is also a member of the committee. Those not members but present with us is Councilor Terry Murphy, and on the phone, not video, is Councilor at Large Howie Graney. We have other guests with us who I'm going to introduce as we do the agenda. These guests are here for different items. The first part of the agenda is with the police union, their contract, and the transfer to support that. And then we'll be introducing, as we go along, other guests who are with us. Reminder to our guests, city councilors are aware of this. If you're familiar with Zoom, one way to get recognized is there's a raise your hand. If you go into the participant box, raise your hand, a blue hand comes up, and I'll know you look to speak. If you can't do that or it doesn't work for you, just raise your hand and I'll see you. And we'll get everybody in to speak. Okay, with that in mind, we are a Zoom meeting. We are a Zoom meeting because of the COVID crisis, and we cannot go into City Hall. We cannot meet as we all wish that we could. We would love to be there in presence and allow the public to come into the building, but that is not doable at the moment for obvious reasons of public health, public safety of both our constituents and of ourselves. However, we do have access. We are on Zoom. This is being live televised. It's about a 2 to 3 second delay on channel 15, the access channel. And we certainly, as there are no public hearings scheduled this evening, but we certainly want the public to be able to watch this meeting. It will be taped and will be played, recorded and played in the future. With that in mind, item number 1, the chair would ask that we take up item 1 and 2 together.
Motion to take items number 1 and 2 off
Motion
the
made
table for
second to
discussion.
proceed on items 1 and 2 together. All those in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? So moved. Item number 1 is for the second time in this committee, the MOA agreement between the City of Holyoke and the International Brotherhood of Police Officers, Local 388, otherwise known as the Patrol Officers. Item number 2, to support the contract, the contract has been proposed and between the mayor on behalf of the city, the law department, and the police officers union 388 is a $210,000 transfer from stabilization into various line items that would support this fiscal year's increase in the budget. A reminder real quick, we've gone over this with the fine-tooth comb details, but the contract would be retroactive to July 1 of 2019. That would be the fiscal year which we are currently in, which is about to end on June 30th. Before I just preview a couple of the other items in the MOA itself, retroactive can take place in a given fiscal year. My understanding is that the law reads that if you go into another fiscal year, you cannot go retroactive back into a prior year. Now, this contract is on the table. Whether we vote on it before June 30th doesn't mean it won't be retroactive, but that's something to keep in mind both by city councilors and by the union and by the law department itself. The increases are, I read them wrong the last time and I was corrected, but the increases, what we call cost of living, are like this, as back to July 1, 2019, retroactive 0.5%. July 1 of 2020, 1.5%. July 1, 2021, 1.0%. July 1, 2021, January 1, 2021, 1.0. July 1, 2021, 1.5. And the final increase would be January 1, 2022 of 1.5. We learned of some other financial impacts. One that we talked at for a while was the education incentive, not the QUINN bill. The QUINN bill is grandfathered in, but the education incentives, if this contract is adopted by the city council, the education incentives will go from a flat rate to a percentage rate, being the associate's degree of 6%, bachelor's degree of 10%, and a master's degree of 12%. So we asked a couple of questions at the last meeting. I'm going to open this up to the floor for discussion in a second, but at the last meeting, we asked a couple of questions that we wanted to get answers to. One is, would the mayor agree to look at the $210,000 from stabilization, knowing that if we pass $210,000, it would put us over the $750,000 magical mark that we had agreed to back in the setting of the tax rate back in October. I'm sorry, it was more like November, December. And this 210 would put us over by about approximately $26,000. The mayor's office has forwarded both to myself, the law department, and the auditor that at this point he does not wish to go to change that transfer. He believes stabilization, even beyond 750, going beyond 70/50, supports this, and he believes it's appropriate. That is both from the mayor and from Mr. Bloomberg himself. We also asked the auditor, with the help of the police department, to project some numbers out on the education incentive if we were to change the percentage. She has just provided that this morning, and I'll share that as we go along. But I don't want to dominate this conversation because Councillor Lahey will tell me I'm doing a filibuster. So could I ask, representing the law department, I know we have Attorney Dupre, who is the outside attorney who was hired to do labor relations, although Attorney Dupre did not negotiate this contract. The lawyer who negotiated the contract for the city is no longer with the city. Is, I believe, Manny Rivera with us yet?
I am, sir.
Okay, thank you, Manny. And is Crystal Barnes with us, Russ?
Here. I believe so.
Okay, so we have two representatives from the law department. Manny Rivera is now the president of the union. When this contract was negotiated, Manny was, I believe, the vice chair of the union at the time, and
that was the vice president.
Vice president, and part of the negotiations. Crystal is our city solicitor. Was not the attorney that did the negotiations at the time, as I said. So with that in mind, I would open this up for discussion. Are there any questions from the city council about proceeding or about what I just outlaid?
Yeah, Joe, if I could.
Councillor Lahey.
Joe. Thank you. I think I should probably abstain from this discussion.
Thank you. We note that Councillor Lahey, because of a family member in the union, will be abstaining from voting and abstaining from discussion. Thank you, Jim. Councillor Sullivan.
Just a quick question. Did my raise hand thing go up?
Yes, it did.
Okay, it doesn't show it, but so,
on mine it turns blue.
Okay.
It was like in and out, but it's there.
That's because I was hitting all the buttons. So anyways, for anybody, either Manny or for the law department, as far as the degrees go, I think the question I have that hasn't been answered is is there any requirement for what type of college degree? It doesn't specify here in what's in front of us. It just says an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, a master's degree. You know, it could be.
The contract says in criminal justice. I can try to pull it up here in a second.
Just to clarify, it is criminal justice.
And that's, Mike, that's existing language. That's not on the table for change. That's what was negotiated when the QUINN bill was grandfathered shortly after. The new language is the percentages, flat rate to a percentage.
I just wanted to make sure that hadn't changed in any way, because all we're seeing here is an associate's degree or a master.
Yep.
All right. And that's my only question right now.
Okay, we are joined by Councillor Barley. Councillor Barley is a member of the committee. Welcome, David. Councillor Tallman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for, I believe it would be Crystal on the contract. Councilor McGiverin, you stated that we're short $26,000. So the money that's coming from stabilization, that's my concern. We're short 26,000. So is the mayor stating that we're taking that extra money from stabilization?
Can I clarify that? I may have said it wrong, Councillor Tallman. The 210 is the full amount needed. It goes about $26,000 over to $750,000. The 750,000 is the extra money we got this year because of real estate increase in single family homes. If the city council were to pass the 210 because of previous transfers out of the stabilization, we would exceed the $750,000 agreed upon mark.
So I just want to clarify.
Yes.
So this contract was not submitted as part of our supplemental budget when we decided
Right.
to try and figure out what we were going to use. This actually was decided after the fact once the supplemental budget had already been submitted. So this was not part of that initial, what is now $750,000. So unfortunately, because we don't have free cash and we don't have funds anywhere else, we are looking to take it from the stabilization account.
Correct, but my concern is that since we're short 26,000, so we're taking another 26,000 above the 750 out of the stabilization.
Right. So, I mean, like I said, this was not part of that supplemental budget, 750,000. It was never intended to be part of that. So while that money is there, it was accounted for in other ways, which we denoted in the supplemental budget that was submitted. This was not part of that. This would be just as if we were asking for any other funds to come out of stabilization, regardless of that supplemental budget situation that happened.
Right, but this is being a contract, right? My concern is taking money from stabilization to pay basically wages. Is that something that we normally do?
It's not something we normally do. We also don't normally have $0 in free cash. So unfortunately, we were kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. And this is where we have funds at the moment.
And what's the scenario if for some reason we don't pass this transfer to accept the contract? We go back to the drawing board with them?
We would have to, correct. Your approval of the funds being appropriated is what's going to verify our contract.
Okay, thank you.
And just a reminder, because it's stabilization, whether it's the 750 or any part of stabilization, it's a 2/3 vote required for a final vote. So it requires 9 votes to get this money through the council. 9 out of 12 because Councillor Lahey is abstaining. Councillor Barley.
Yeah, am I coming through okay, Joe?
Yes, you are.
All right. Yeah, just to the chair to the law department, I appreciate what you said. Respectfully, I don't think it's terribly relevant. And the reason I say that is because when we took the vote December 17th, we made it clear that the 750 was going to get us through June 30th. So that's point one. Point two, and the law department knows this, whether or not we accounted for it directly on December 17th, you cannot tell me that that's relevant. You, the law department, knew this was going on. You knew you were in negotiation. Now, whether you wanted to convey that or the mayor's office wanted to convey it specifically was up to you. But you knew where we were with the budget. And now you want to say here at the end of May, or try to tell this committee at the end of May, well, this wasn't contemplated December 17th. I respectfully find that to be disingenuous. And I want my fellow councilors and the public to know that. We knew what the numbers were December 17th. You knew what the numbers were December 17th. And you knew you were negotiating a contract, or your colleague was, who's no longer with us, I understand, negotiating a contract that would perhaps get us well beyond it. Those are a couple points. The other point that we all recognize is that we have never, and we've said from bond counsel over the years, we don't use stabilization for payroll. It's for exigent circumstances. Now, I'm not saying this isn't an exigent circumstance, but those are certain points that are just. I just think they have to be expressed, and I'm happy to have a friendly discussion on it, and I don't mean to come off as a hard guy at all, and I apologize if I did, but I just have to say I just had to make those make those points. And again, I do apologize to the chair for being late. I wish I could read the agenda properly. I do apologize.
Mr. President,
Councillor Barley, it's okay. There was a draft agenda, and then we decided to start at 6 because we got the CPA stuff coming up right after this. The chair, you're not, we understood there was some confusion. We're glad you're with us. Councillor Graney on phone.
Mr. President, I don't know if there's any other money in any other city budget, like say the snow removal budget or any other department that we could make up the $26,000 and whether or not that is legal or not.
I don't doubt that there is, Councilor Graney. We put the question to the auditor, to the mayor, if the mayor is willing to find, the money, and the mayor communicated back that he is not going to break up the $210,000. I received the email late today. I will get it to everybody, but I just asked him to, respectfully give it to us in writing. He had communicated, I believe, to you, Crystal, and to the auditor prior to today. We cannot initiate the appropriation. Only the mayor can initiate it. We can vote it up or down. All we're going to have in front of us is the 210 from stabilization if we pass it out of committee tonight.
So there's no chance that there's any flexibility. When this contract was negotiated, I'm sure there was flexibility that was involved on both sides of the table, but it seems to me that the mayor should be able to be flexible enough if they negotiate a contract that's $26,000 above and beyond what they have, that they'd have the money from some other place to put it in there. Thank you. That's my opinion.
Councilor Sullivan, do you have your hand back up?
Yeah, I did. I completely concur with what Councilor Graney just said. Not only snow removal, I can't believe with the way the prices of fuel have plummeted in the last several months, the cancellation of the St. Patrick's Day parade, the road race, all the overtimes that were associated with it and other city expenses, that there isn't any money available in any other accounts at this point to get this done. And to come back and say, for the mayor to say he's not going to look there, he's just going to go straight after stabilization for this and nowhere else, that just doesn't ring proper to me.
Councilor Murphy? There, you got to unmute.
Good?
Yes, good.
Okay. So a few things. Well, I don't disagree with the comments, and I certainly think that if in fact there are funds available in other accounts, that would certainly make more sense. And there's no reason why we couldn't end up having that before us on Tuesday. And I'm pretty sure we would get pretty much most unanimous support. I do want to ask a few questions related to the education incentive. And I guess I'd probably to Officer Rivera, and that would be, do we know how many of our patrol officers have associate's degrees, bachelor's degrees, and master's degrees? Do we?
So currently, we have 24 members receiving that benefit.
Could you, how many?
24.
24, okay.
Yep.
And how many of those have associates?
One master's. I believe there's about 12 associates and 13 bachelors.
Okay. And so you said one master, right?
Correct.
And if I think our last meeting we talked, the average pay was about 50,000.
55,000, sir.
55,000. So the only ones that are, getting the incentive, the only person that gets a master really, because they were getting 6,000. Is really getting a very small increase. The others are getting potentially a little more than $1,000 extra beyond what they would have gotten under the contract. It wouldn't be the way I would have wanted to do it, but I want our officers to get the best education and best training possible. I would agree with what the councilor said. I would encourage the committee to let the mayor know that, there's money out there. Let's get the other money, transfer what he needs out of stabilization and get the rest out of other accounts. put that before us. I would vote for that because I think these officers have waited a year already. I think that it's been negotiated, whether we agree with all, and I don't agree with all the fine points. I don't agree with that education incentive point, but they've negotiated for a year or beyond that, and they've waited a year. Let's make sure before we get through the end of this fiscal year, we have approved both the contract and the funding for the contract. Hopefully the mayor will listen, recognize that, it's just a matter of doing a little accounting review and auditing review and coming up with some additional funds, which I agree, they're there. Thank you.
Councillor Barley?
Yeah, I want to agree with what all the prior speakers said. I think that the only way we're going to be able to get some sort of movement on that, I think what the advice of the finance chair was right. We don't appropriate. That's not how the game's played. To me, the only way we can get something to happen here is to have this tabled at finance. Hey Joe, I got my dad on the line. I gotta step aside, Joe. Okay, I do apologize.
No problem.
All right.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Sullivan?
Yeah, this is a question for the chair. So to pick up where Councillor Bartley left off, if we tabled this with the message back to the mayor that we want to see some funds come out of another account, would that allow us then to take it up at the meeting and vote on it then, vote it out of here, or just table it, or vote it out without recommendation? How would we do that?
We have options. Okay, but if we table it in committee, we run into the taking it out of committee to take a vote if the mayor changes his mind. We tabled it the last time we met to ask the mayor if he was willing to separate the 210, reducing it down to that magical number by about 26K, and then giving us the 26K from elsewhere. They communicated back to me today. They communicated earlier, I think it was late last week, to the law department and to the auditor, that they are not willing because of the unknowns in this year's budget with the emergency plan. There are unknowns as to finishing up the year. I can't go beyond speaking to the mayor. Thank you, for your consideration. At this point, they want to keep it with the 210,000.
No, it's hard to understand you right now.
Somebody's got something going in the background. We can't.
Yeah, I think David's on his phone. I think we got it.
I don't think you can hear us.
I couldn't understand what you were saying because there was other conversations, Joe.
Okay, we
I think we're good now.
So Councillor Sullivan brought up the point that if we, how do we table it and how do we get the mayor to see if the mayor will change it? If we table it and leave it in committee, it'll require another committee vote down the road. Okay, unless the full city council pulls it out. We tabled it the last time we had this in committee, and for one of the two reasons. One, to ask the mayor if he was willing to reduce the $210,000 from stabilization and find the $26,000 from elsewhere. He politely has sent us his response that he's not willing to do that. He wants to keep it in stabilization because of what he's calling unknowns with closing out the fiscal budget this year. Mostly, a lot of it because of the COVID emergency and what's going on there. There's some items coming in next Tuesday about deficit spending, and there's some other things that we have to take up and understand. So I mean, it's our option. Again, let me point out a couple. If you don't mind, I'd like to say a few things. Does that answer your question, Councillor Sullivan?
For now, yes. Yeah.
Okay. I was the one that brought up the education incentive, and I'm going to remind everybody, the QUINN bill 50 years ago, 45 years ago, whenever it was first implemented, the city chose a percentage rate instead of a flat rate. I feel the percentage rate in the long run financially hurt the contract itself, hurt the city in terms of, especially when you get into the salaries of the superior officers, of the percentages of that. Now, the QUINN bill percentages are much higher than these percentages that are proposed here, but this is the way it works. This year it's not a big deal, and probably the next handful of years it's financially not a big deal. But the numbers that the auditor sent today, which I'm going to ask her to forward to everyone before as soon as possible. Show that this increase 10 years and 20 years out is a lot higher than the percentages that we do here. So a negotiated contract in 10 years, just a cost of living increase of 1.5% would automatically include the percentages that are proposed in this contract. Thus, it's an inflationary, no control by the city, inflationary increase anytime the city negotiates a COLA agreement. That's my humble opinion, and that's why I oppose changing the flat rate to a percentage rate. And in all likelihood, unless I'm shown different, I will not vote for changing the percentages, because I think that's the financial hardship. As I noted at the last committee meeting, this is in front of us, just the patrolmen, but the superior officers contract, which we did solidify, did not include increases for the education incentive, of which right now there's only a couple of superior officers. Most of them are still in the QUINN bill, but they will be retiring. And eventually the superior officers will get the education incentive. Their contract has a clause that says they can reopen up if the patrolmen get this contract passed and their education incentive goes to percentage. The superior officers have a right to reopen their contract immediately and address their percentages for education incentive. That number is something that you have to look at and try to absorb, because that's a much higher number because of the salary. I'll be the first to tell you, the salary, when you take a base pay of a police officer, patrol officer, it's comparable to other communities around. Matter of fact, this is in some areas, this is a well-deserved contract for our officers themselves. But when you jump to a superior officer right away, there's a large gap between the base pay of a patrol officer and a superior officer as you go up into sergeant, lieutenant, captain, and so forth. So I'm just letting you know that those numbers we will get to everybody. I thought the auditor sent them to I believe to the law department, myself as requested, and the police department helped look at the numbers by individuals, and we'll get those out.
It was 6. I thought it was 6.
As far as the 210 goes, I'm not too sure how I'll vote if everything else is resolved, but right now, regardless, it's still going to take 9 votes if it remains at 210.
Mr. President?
Is that Councilor Graney?
Yes, it is.
Councilor Graney.
I have a question through the chair. The finance committee, your finance committee, their function is to appropriate funding. Is that correct? It has nothing to do with negotiations.
We cannot negotiate as a city council when a contract is on the table. The only time we can talk about a contract is when the appropriation is before us. The contract comes before us for the initial current year appropriation that is necessary to pass the contract, and we need to know what the future impact is. We do not negotiate, you are correct, but we can put down.
I understand that, Joe.
You asked a question, so I tried to answer it.
Right. Well, my question is, as the finance committee appropriates finances, could the finance committee appropriate the money for this contract less the $26,000 and throw it into the mayor's lap?
The answer is no. And I'll tell you why. It's a good question, Councilor Graney. The city council, the finance committee, or the city council cannot amend a financial transfer, a financial expenditure, a financial appropriation from the mayor. The only time we're allowed to do that is in the budget when we get that 45-day period. We have line item control. When we have these mid-year, end of the year transfers in front of us, we have to vote the number that's put in front of us up or down. Only the mayor can put the number in front of us, which is why we say only the mayor can initiate the appropriation. We cannot change it.
Thank you.
Councilor Murphy?
Yeah, just asking you another question, just keeping you busy here today. So if the committee tabled it, and with the understanding that we're asking the mayor to come in with a different financial transfer at our meeting on Tuesday, and we took up the financial transfer on Tuesday, it would still need a 2/3 vote, correct? I mean, we would not have to send it back to committee.
Stabilization at the final vote nothing to do with first reading and second reading.
Yep.
The final vote, stabilization, is always 2/3.
2/3.
Stabilization. Any other transfer, with 2 readings on different nights could be a simple majority.
But if we were okay with the contract, and I have some concerns, the same concerns you have. But again, we can't negotiate that. And if we reject it, we're going back, starting all over again, and who knows what's going to come out of that. But I'm just saying, if the committee tabled it, we would be in a position, if the mayor would be in a position to come out with a different financial transfer to cover the contract at our meeting on Tuesday, which we could pass then, and in effect be in the same situation if the committee recommended out tonight, which I don't think the committee is going to do, but I'm not going to speak for the committee. But if they did, the earliest we could vote is June 2nd. If the mayor comes in with a different financial transfer, so he's not taking as much out of stabilization, and he brought that before us on Tuesday, we'd be in the same situation. As long as we were okay with the contract, we could pass it then without having to go back to committee and delaying it any longer. Is that correct?
That's correct. There's more than one way to do it, but okay. The committee can choose what it wishes to choose by reporting it out. The committee then can decide how they're going to vote on Tuesday, or table it on Tuesday, or put it back in committee. But we did this at the last committee meeting. It's exactly what we did. Is we tabled it to ask the mayor to address the 210,000 and address knowingly that it would go over to 750 even the last time we met. So essentially, we've done that once. If the committee wants to do it a second time, that's fine. But again, we're coming close to the end of the fiscal year. Keep that in mind. Retroactive, when we leave this fiscal year, retroactive can be a problem.
No, I agree with you.
Officer Rivera, I don't see you, so I don't know if you wanted to speak, but Annie, do you want to address any of what we've been talking about for the union?
Sure. So first and foremost, when we went in there and negotiated the Holyoke education plan, just basically what you touched on, the pay gap, it was a source that we used in order to try to close this gap. I don't think it's a lot that we're asking for on the percentage side of things. I believe our men and women of our department deserve these increases. If you see the things we deal with on a day in and day out basis, I mean, we're definitely comparable to other cities when it comes to crime and all the stuff we deal with. I mean, do you want to bring a good candidate, or do you want someone to bring along that just doesn't work out for you? I'm not saying education is everything. However, it does help in our line of work.
Officer, Mr. President, I believe in education as that all police officers, and I believe in an incentive for all police officers to get their degrees. In my career, I read police reports, and believe me, we need our police officers to have education in their experience, because I think it helps them in a lot of areas, not just in doing police work, but in their follow-up and in what they do as officers. I meant no disrespect by that, Manny, but
no, none taken.
And I think it's important. I'm in favor of education. It's the 10 and 20 year out what the percentage does that concerns me. Councillor Tallman.
Yeah, thank you again, Mr. Chair. My concern is, I know we already tabled this, but if the mayor at one time after the last meeting, we sent it back to him, and he stated that he wasn't going to take the 26,000 from somewhere else, who's to say he's going to do that again? So I believe in the great work that men and women in the police department do. It's a thankless job sometimes, but I think the educational part of it is important. I'm not totally agreeable on how they put the numbers together. I think it's a little bit too much, if you're going out 10, 15 years, but that's what negotiated is in the contract, and we can't negotiate the contract. So my thought is, if it's possible, my colleagues on a committee, to maybe send this to the full council without a recommendation, and then see what the rest of the council feel. And if it has to be that, they'll have to go back to the bargaining table. Not that something I would want to do, because these officers have been waiting for a contract for a number of months. And my concern also was, if we go into the next fiscal year, that it's hard to go retroactive. We go into July and they're retroactive pay. How does that all work? There's some questions on that, but my thought is to maybe send this to the full council from our committee without a recommendation, and then have the council vote on it as it is. And if we don't get the 9 out of 12 votes, then it goes back to committee, or it goes back to the mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tomlin. Chair recognizes that Councillor Bacon has joined us, Ward 5 Councillor. And Councillor Sullivan, your hand is up.
Yep. I think I've got the green thing mastered this time too. So, I concur with what Councillor Tallman just said, but I'd like to take it one step further, that we send it to the full council with a recommendation to deny as it stands. And the only difference here is we're sending a stronger message to the mayor. I'd be willing to change my vote from what I send out there if there was some effort made on his part to find some money somewhere else. As far as the percentage for the degree, that's if that stayed in the contract for 20 years out at those same percentage rates. I think what we've got here is we've got someone, Mr. Is it pronounced Dupere?
Dupere,
who's come in and been handed this package that was negotiated by someone that's no longer with us. All right. And my hope would be that the next time it comes around, or in future years when it comes around, if this does become a burden, this would become a negotiating point where someone would do a better job. All I can say right now is the representative for the police department did a hell of a much better job of negotiating a deal for them than the city did. And they should be, they should get what they negotiated. That percentage rate is something somebody can do a better job on in the future if it becomes a burden. So I'd be willing to go forward with a recommendation to deny as it stands. And if the mayor comes back and amends it in time for the full city council meeting, I'd be willing to go ahead and change my vote.
Is there any further discussion? Is our law department, Attorney Dupre, or I'm sorry, Officer Manning Rivera?
Yes, I'd just like to add, I know there's been some discussion in regards to, if the year closes out, it becomes an issue with the retro. I just want to put on the record that back in our MOA was signed January 16th. Late February, the union was called to meet with Mr. Bloomberg and staff in regards to holding off on the contract for July 1st. Okay. We were all on board to try to do that with them. However, at the same time, they were trying to get rid of our retro, which we've worked hard for. And then the national pandemic takes place. We were patient. We didn't reach out to anyone. We understood the severity of it. And, not till you reached out to us did we go forward on this. So, we've done nothing but try to help the whole situation out here. And I just want to let you guys know that.
Thank you. And Manning, Officer, thank you and all the men and women for what you do. And this is, I know it's tough to get these things in front of us. And, it's about affordability. It's about current affordability, but more so future affordability. And we hope we can resolve this. And we always try to resolve it. But I wanted to be fair, and that's why I set the plate about stabilization. And it's going to take 9 votes. And the education incentive is also, one city councilor has a concern about the percentage, I guess. But we don't know what's going to happen when we get in front of this full city council. But with that in mind, is there anyone else? Crystal, are you all set?
Yeah, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, the chair, I've heard a couple of different ways to do this. Just a reminder, and to avoid confusion, and I think the president is agreeing that, however we get it in front of the city council, when we make motions in front of the city council, it's got to be a motion to adopt, and appropriately you can vote it up or vote it down. If not, the confusion just rings rapid across the board, and not just to us, but people who are watching us. But the committee recommendation is something that I think is important. We know the issues. With all due respect, there's more than one way to do this. The chair will entertain any motion that, you wish to think. Councillor Tallman?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to send this to the full council without a recommendation.
Okay, is there a second to that? I'll second this at that point, just to hope to avoid confusion. I think my position is clear. Councillor Barley, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'm going to make a motion to table it.
Is there a second to that? Motion to table fails for lack of second. Is there any other discussion? Motion on the floor is to receive, refer to committee, refer to the full city council without recommendation. Councillor Sullivan?
Oh, go ahead.
All set? Any further discussion? On that motion, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Please raise your hand. All those against?
I'm going to vote no, Joe.
Okay.
2-2.
Aye. Who am I missing?
Jim Lahey.
Councillor Lahey. All right, so that's a 2-2 vote. A 2-2 vote is no vote. So we have to go back to option A, B, C, or D.
I would make a motion to deny.
Motion to deny does not have a second. Councillor Tallman?
Motion to pass the contract.
I'll second that just to see if we can get it out of committee. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no.
I'm going to say no, Joe.
Okay, Councillor Sullivan?
I need something explained to me. I didn't think we could vote on just the contract.
We're voting on the appropriation, which essentially, if the appropriation passes, it solidifies the contract itself. We received the contract for purposes of understanding it. We got both items. I remember we took them off the table together as a package, and it's the appropriation that we have to vote up or down.
So what are we voting here on?
Well, the item number one is the MOA itself. Okay, that's been received, referred to committee. We're using that to make a decision on item number two. We're voting on item number two, which is the appropriation by transfer of $210,000. That's the only thing we can do is our final vote. We have the MOA in front of us. If you want to separate it and we can say the MOA has been received, the city council already received it. The finance committee took it and we discussed it, and now we're voting on the appropriation that goes with it. The only appropriation we currently have in front of us as the city council.
Which is 210 from stabilization.
Correct.
Okay, no.
Okay, 2-2, that motion fails.
I'm going to renew my motion to table. Nothing.
I'll second that because we're going nowhere. On the
So
motion to
that's our
table,
last
no
option,
discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, motion is tabled.
So,
Moving on to item number 3.
question for the chair. So Joe, we can take it off the table at the full council meeting.
It would take a 2/3 vote to take it off the table.
Okay.
To take it to remove, no, not off the table, Councillor Sullivan. It's currently in finance committee to stay until the
take
finance
it out.
committee does something. The city council can take it out of the finance committee with a 2/3 vote.
Okay. Yep.
Item number 3 is a transfer. Ryan, do we have the chief or the representative of the chief here?
Good night, everybody.
On item number 3?
Good night.
Okay, item number 3 is introduced under my name, a transfer request of $1,020 from part-time senior clerk police to part-time SR clerk police. On the motion to take up for discussion, all those in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
In representing the police department, is anybody here? Ryan, anybody?
I see it.
I know the chief was emailed. I know he said he would be here.
Joe, I see it. It says it's muted. There's a Holyoke Police and it's muted.
I think that was Manny, but
Oh,
Manny, are you still there? Anybody
I
here
am.
from the police department?
he's
Please
there.
Okay, please unmute and introduce yourself.
Matt?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Matt Mainville.
Oh,
Not yet, Matt. In two seconds, Matt.
Okay.
Sorry. Welcome aboard, though. You're welcome to stay there. Anybody from the police department stayed with us or is with us?
Yeah.
Hi.
Manny, I'm still here, Joe.
Okay, Manny, are you familiar with this transfer? Or did they ask you to represent the chief?
No. Nope.
Okay. And I think we're going to table it. And Ryan, if they contact you, let us know. And I don't know if we'll try and get it up before the end of the fiscal year. But right now, I have no idea what it's about.
Okay, sounds good.
motion to table item number 3.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Indeed. Councillor Lahey, you back with us?
I am, sir.
Okay, 5-0 table.
Yeah, Joe,
Yes.
motion suspend, take 4, 5, and 6 of the package.
Motion made second to take items 4, 5, and 6 as a package. Each of these are individual CPA approved award grants from the CPA funds. We have representatives on each of them, both from the committee who I'll introduce in a second, and from the people who petitioned the CPA committee for these funds themselves. So if I can read them real quick, and then we'll get some information and go forward. Item 4 came under Councillor. All these come under Councillor Sullivan's name as the maker of the orders and as our representative on the CPA committee. Is a approved recommendation award of $104,500 for Wysteria Hurst electrical upgrades. Item number 5 is an award of $25,000 for Lady Liberty, the Veterans Park statue. And item number 6 is $120,000. This is the Housing Authority in conjunction with Habitat for Humanity for 2 proposed homes on Jackson Street. So the motion is to receive and take off all 3 as a package. All those in favor?
Aye.
We have with us tonight, and I'll refer to Councillor Sullivan to kind of get us going on this. But we have the chair of CPA, Kip Foley. Kip, welcome. We have representing also from CPA and the Housing Authority Commissioner, Mike Falsetti. Mike Sullivan is our representative to the CPA committee, and that's the audio I have. Matt Mainville is here to represent the Housing Authority. Matt, thank you for joining us. We have a couple others. Can I just have a little help here because I don't have pictures?
Chris Sims.
Kate from Wysteria Hurst. Kate, welcome. And I'm going to say this publicly, and everybody said this at our meeting a couple of weeks ago, but thank you for that daily report on COVID emergency. It's tremendous.
It is
incredible the amount of information, and it's nice. We've seen your name so much. It's nice to have you on Zoom with a face to your name.
Thank you. You're very welcome for that. And any way I can help and be of service, just let me know. Other than that.
Okay. Also from the committee, we have Sarah, right? I can't see your last name.
Sarah Myers-Zimbler. I'm actually with the Holyoke Housing Authority.
With the Housing Authority. So I'm sorry. Never mind. I keep forgetting that you left the city, you know? But good for you. Good for Matt. You know, good for the Housing Authority, stealing one of our best.
You bet.
Anybody else here?
Joe, Chris Sims is here from the.
Chris Sims is here for Lady Liberty. Thank you, Chris. I knew that, and I think so. If I don't see the audio, I can't do this real quick. I'm going to ask Councillor Sullivan as the maker of the order to get into this. We need to vote on these one at a time. Discussion can be any way you want, Councillor Sullivan. Kip certainly as chair, and I'd like to have each of the individuals who petitioned certainly to be available to talk and also to answer any questions that there might be. Mike, can you take the floor real quick?
Sure. So on item number 4, the award for $104,500 to Wysteria Hurst. This was an over somewhere around $350,000 upgrade. The other funds, and I'll let the people from Wysteria Hurst speak to this in a little more detail. I just want to tell you from a practical point of view, I think this is crucial right now. When you look at the electrical system in Wysteria Hurst, some of it is old system, which is called bus bars. If somebody stuck their hand in there, it'd kill them. These are wide copper bars exposed. It's high voltage. Also, it's a lot of wire what's called knob and tube wiring that goes through the building. This is the kind of stuff that causes fires in old buildings. This is a city treasure, and regardless of whether the COVID virus and places not being open right now, it actually makes it an ideal time to do this kind of work. So at this point, I'd turn this particular one over to anybody from Wysteria Hurst that wants to speak to it, because there are matching funds also coming from other sources. So this is a great one.
Kate is here from Wysteria Hurst, and Kip, as chair, did you want to add anything first?
No, I'm all set.
Thank you, Kip.
Mike did a great job. A good project. The committee was very supportive of it. So I'll let Kate explain the project too. She can do it better than I can.
Kate, you're in good position, but please go ahead and you have the floor.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, I mean, Councillor Sullivan summed up a lot of what I was going to say. If there were questions about timing, the pandemic, for the worst possible reasons, has actually given us an opportunity to do this better, and I think more quickly. And that was one of the concerns with the original timeline, was kind of working around our program schedule and revenue schedule. And you know, I've met with the city engineer in the last couple of weeks, and we agree that we can actually move this forward and do it while we're already closed, and save time and save resources from the original proposal, which was mainly to right now, especially for CPA funds, to focus on the most critical safety issues, which are those fuse boxes throughout the house. So there are 3 fuse boxes from the 1930s, which are still being used to pump power. I'm talking about the main house at Wysteria Hurst 2. So you may remember the carriage house facility was upgraded in 2010. So that has all new electrical systems. So we're really just looking at the main house facility. There are 2 other fuse boxes that are from the 1950s that need to get upgraded, and we need to do some crucial work with fire lighting and fire hazard exit signage. So that's really the core of this grant and the core of what we use CPA funds for. There are some other elements in the overall project. For instance, the former Friends of Wysteria Hurst donated some of their funds when they closed out their accounts, which would allow us to upgrade the lighting to have professional grade performance lighting in the music room. We did find out last week that, contingent upon this match grant, that we will be awarded the Mass Cultural Council Cultural Facilities Grant that we applied for, and that's another $110,000 that would go towards helping us also upgrade some auditory accessibility issues that exist in the house. So as a whole, this project, the core of it, and the core of what the CPA funds would be used for, are very serious hazard issues in the house. And I don't believe that we could necessarily reopen safely in 2021, you know, knowing that those are there and just leaving those sitting for longer. So I'd really like to see this happen. I think the timing is good. We have CDBG funds to make sure that we're doing all the design plans right. We're looking right now for a preservation consultant. We'll of course work with the Mass Historic Commission, but they've already given us some signs of approval based on what we've told them, because it will all be in the walls and none of it is necessarily visible historic fabric that we're changing or affecting.
Okay, can you remind us how much the CDBG money is?
Yeah, we already had an award for $34,500. So that's going to go, that's in progress, going to design plans, schematics, and some of the like prep work that we have to do to get this project rolling. A lot of the mystery of this project is that we know what is wrong, but we don't know what else we will find once we start working on it. So again, a lot of the puzzle of this grant and the size of this grant was based on the idea that to do this, we would need to do it all at once, and we would have to close Wysteria Hurst. We would want all the funds in hand. And if we found anything, we would want funds to take care of everything as we found it. Given the current circumstances, we can look more at a phased progress and kind of take it piece by piece. It will still be the full amount. But with this grant, we will have in hand about $292,000 of what we needed. And that's, I think, well within the range of getting those safety safety issues fixed, and getting a much better idea for what's behind the walls at Wysteria Hurst, which really we don't have a lot of information on it right now.
And has this project gone out to bid, or is it something you'll be going out to bid on?
It's not gone out to bid yet. The only bid documents we've drawn up are for engineering consultants to help us with the design plan itself. And we don't even have like schematics or plans at Wysteria Hurst. So someone's going to have to go in and survey the facility and create us design plans of the existing systems. So that's all in progress, but it hasn't gone out to bid yet.
Okay. No Skinner family members still hanging around to help you?
No, we gave that a shot. We were in the midst of a public campaign. Actually, I shouldn't say no, because there are, we have some great members still in contact with us who have donated. We're in the middle of a public campaign when the pandemic hit, so that we've taken a hit for sure on donations to that. We were at about 15,000 raised for a goal of about 40. I do think we'll be able to resume that and continue. We were making very good progress in the first quarter of the year. We surpassed our goals for kind of the quiet phase of that. So, you know, I'm not counting on that at the moment, but that was part of the initial funding plan for this.
Any discussion, Councilor Murphy?
Yeah, first of all, I'm very happy that when I first got back on the council in January of 2019, I met with Kate and we went over this, and obviously it was a dangerous situation taking place. We've had meetings in Public Safety Committee trying to resolve this issue. And let me just say, when the city engineer first brought the amount, it was about $280,000 to resolve all the issues that they could see. So I think I'm glad that we're going to get this done now, and I'm glad that Kate's continued to pursue funding. This is something that hopefully would have had done a year ago, but getting it done this year and getting it done this way, congratulations, Kate. I appreciate your follow-up on it, and let's get this issue resolved before we have somebody get unnecessarily injured. And the threats were very serious, and also to make the facility as well-rounded and as complete as possible. So I'm all for this, and I'm glad to see that it's back and getting some funding, and you got other funding coming in to offset that. One last question just to Kate. So when all said and done, once this is done, we expect that all the work will be done with the monies that you have available now?
All of the core components we can do. As you said, the core of the project's around 280,000. We've raised so far 292,000. Some of the things that I'm not considering core are, you know, would be something like the scale of lighting, performance level lighting, some of the enhancements, auditory accessibility features. We had some extras in there because once we're in, we really want to do this right, and we wanted to come out with a better space than we had. But we do have the money, barring, again, we don't know what's in the walls. We don't know what else we'll stumble upon once we're in there. But what we know we need to fix, we would, with this grant, which would secure us the state grant, we would have the money to fix the safety hazards. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Any other discussion? Councillor Lahey.
Yeah, thank you. Publicly, I just want to say once again that I think that Kate has done a fantastic job updating all the city councilors on a daily basis. And then I take her report and I push that off into the Holyoke Facebook forum. And so many people come back to me and just compliment you. So I just wanted to say that publicly. So thank you for that. One of the things that she also said was of great concern to me. A good friend of mine, Tom Abel, who's in the insurance business, he just told me the other day that 35,000 fires are caused by knob and tube. 35,000 fires a year. We not only do we have to, we owe it to that beautiful mansion to get that fixed. So I'm going to be voting yes on this, and I'm so excited to do so. And I can't wait to go back there. It's absolutely a beautiful, stunning place. So thank you, Kate, and your staff, because you guys do a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, Joe, I do have my hand up.
Councillor Barley.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for everybody being here. I appreciate it. Just through the chair to Kate. Kate, you do have a there is a budget for this for all the knob and tube replacement, and this this sum of the 104,500 is going towards that budget?
So just to clarify, that it's not knob and tube we're looking at. What we're looking at upgrading is actually older than that. And is the 6 fuse boxes that we're looking at. So that's the three 1930s era ones that we're talking about, and that have the copper open circuit currents running through them, and the 2 1950s panel boards that are pretty dangerous as well. Those are the things. We did have an engineering study done in 2018, and those were the items that were flagged. We don't believe that there's actually that much knob and tube in there, so it's a little confusing, but it's the sources themselves, so the boxes themselves, that are really posing the immediate danger to Wysteria Hurst. Again, I don't want to say that we won't find other things, unfortunately, once we're in there and once inspectors are in there looking at the work. But we think, based on the engineering study we've already done, and the engineering consultants that we're going to be bringing in, what we find from them, we expect that this will up the safety level at Wysteria Hurst by tenfold. It's really what's been identified as the immediate need.
Right. So I'm just trying to get clarification. So the total, what did your engineering study give you, based on what the engineers saw, an estimated construction cost to do this?
Yeah, that's the 280,000 for these safety issues. The 104.5 is all allocated to those repairs.
Okay.
So the Cultural Council grant, as I said, has some other things in it, but the CPA grant was specifically for the safety repairs, not a.
Great. And then the maybe I missed it, but the timeline of this is what?
Oh, so the timeline has now changed from what I submitted based on the pandemic situation. So Wysteria Hurst, we expect the main house to be closed for several months to go to the public for the most part. So we had laid out a timeline wherein we would do the design and schematic phase this spring and summer. And then we were going to hold off and do the actual repairs when we are quieter in the winter. So it was January to kind of March 2021, but now we're just accelerating that. So we'll go straight from the schematics and the design phase into the repairs. So I would, if all goes well, we would have it all done by the end of the year, if not by the late fall.
Well, that's good news. And then I do have a couple of other questions, but just to the chair, Joe, or maybe Mike Sullivan would be better. So I'll go to the chair to Mike. Jimmy and I filed an order a couple of years ago relative to follow up on grants, and then just get some feedback. And Mike, or Mike or Joe, whichever one can answer this. What do we got for our own internal controls? Understand that these are the funds that these are tax dollars, as we all know, for the extra property tax funds we're paying that were voted on by the 2017, and then what funds expended, and then the use of the funds, and then some feedback. So do we have those kind of controls in place? So because I don't remember getting one report on any CPA funds we've expensed to date. So I just want to make sure that we're. And Mike, and you're doing a great job. And believe me, this is, I'm not piling more on your back, but I just want to, if you have a sense as to whether or not we're going to get some feedback, or if, just go ahead. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah. So the CPA, they have their own treasurer, and the committee keeps an eye on all the expenses. They have to come in right now. If I could ask Kip, you could speak directly to that question. And I think just like we've done before, Dave, with other groups, at some point they could come in and we could have discussions and updates and stuff like that at DGNR or something, which I'm sure everybody would be fine with, But
can I just, before Kip answers, and Mike, I actually appreciate that, because we've done that exact same thing with Attorney Barnes and the great job they're doing in the law department relative to the receivership program. And Attorney Barnes gave us just a tremendous update last fall. I think we took it up in January on receivership. So we could almost do something similar to that for CPA. So.
Yep. So, yep. You want to
Yeah, sorry.
expand
Go
on
ahead.
what I said?
Sure. So we spend a lot of time in our meetings talking about keeping an eye on the taxpayers' dollars, making sure that we're not handing checks to people for them to spend at their discretion. So the current protocol is we're reimbursing direct invoices. So a lot of these projects have phases to them or month, they're going on. The perfect example is the Holyoke Boys and Girls Club, a multi-month project. They're submitting invoices and then they're getting paid out of the city's, what is it? It's the purchasing or Mike Sullivan, who cuts the checks?
The treasurer would.
The treasurer. So it's going through the city government and when they submit an invoice, the administrator is checking to make sure that the CPA committee administrator is making sure the work is being performed as described. We are a little off topic, but just quickly, we are talking about trying to develop a system which wouldn't require the recipient to pay the invoices and then get reimbursed, because we're finding that to be an obstacle. But we are very concerned about making sure that the taxpayers' money is actually going to the purpose that we recommend and that the city council approves. I don't know if that answered your question, but I tried.
Yeah, you succeeded. Yeah, I'm good, Joe. Thank you.
I just know Councillor Bartley too, and I only stumbled across it today, but the auditor did let me know, is I believe it's page 53 in our current upcoming budget. The CPA funds are listed, and it gives us, it doesn't give us that full report that you and Councillor Lahey appropriately have asked for, but it does give us a little insight to that. The auditor does play a part in overseeing some of the funds along with the treasurer. And in some cases, city departments are responsible because the money goes to a city department. In other cases, the money goes to a more not-profit or any private entity that, will certainly be making reports in the city. I'm not sure exactly who, but we'll be making reports too. I think our administrative assistant, I know he's got a lot on his plate, plays a part in coordinating the return of these reports. And some areas it's been pretty good. In some areas, I won't mention the police department or school department, after what the DOR did this current year, we need a lot of improvement in terms of the oversight of the grants that they receive, because that costing us $1.7 million. Over 2/3 of that was because of grants in poor condition. But that has not been the case for CPA to date. This is, again, the first round was last year. It's currently just in progress, and I expect we'll be seeing some reports on those projects. And these projects obviously haven't started yet. Councillor Tallman.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to thank Kate for the work you do, especially for the reports you've given us over the past few months. I think this is well needed and well deserved money to the Wysteria Hurst. It's important that we keep one of the Holyoke's gyms going and safe. Very much in favor of this, and thank the CPA committee, all the members of looking at each item that comes in to help the different agencies to get funding to keep their buildings and keep their parks and everything up to date. So I really appreciate the work of the CPA committee, and thanks for the work you do too, Kate. Appreciate it.
Is there any further discussion on this project?
Make a motion it's been complied with?
We have to actually approve it, Councillor Lahey.
Okay. Transfer.
I make a motion to approve it.
Motion made second that the finance committee approves this, recommends.
Joe, just point out, Joe, we've got all these as a package, so I don't know if if we just go on. I mean, it's up to you, but we have them all as a package.
Next week, it's going to be 3 separate votes when it goes to the city council.
No,
theoretically, someone could vote for one and not vote for another one.
Not for the other.
But
I know, but we agreed here to take them as a package. But that's okay.
Well, we did.
That's your
suggestion. We can make the motion now. Or we can make it in 5 minutes.
Yeah,
it's the pleasure of the committee.
I think to make a motion.
Reconsider. We'll just motion reconsider this and then just take number 4 off the table.
Okay, on number 4, reconsider to take it up and make a recommendation. All those in favor? Any opposed? The chair recognizes a motion that we recommend to the full city council that they approve this particular $104,500 for Wysteria Hurst. All those in favor?
Second.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Item number 5 is an order for $25,000 for the restoration of the Lady Liberty statue, which is in Veterans Park, as I think we all well know. Off the table.
I make a motion to approve it.
No, hang.
A second to approve. We have with us Chris Sims from the Veterans Commission that is in charge of both, not just the War Memorial, but in charge of the statutes, and he's going to make a report. Mike, do we want to get right into what Chris has to report, or you or Kip want to say something first?
Yeah, I want to say something first here. I think I've got this worded wrong, and Kip or Chris, if you can correct me. The issue with this one is it's, I believe, a restoration study and not a restoration of the statue. This is just for a study, not for physical work.
Chris is going to explain
correct.
That. Okay.
Yeah, so Mike Falsetti, who's been kind of to help spearhead this entire process, he can provide more technical aspects. But yes, this is a restoration study, and that in and of itself is going to be extremely costly.
Chair will recognize Mike Falsetti to give us the overview of this, Mike.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, as a result of the wear and tear on the statue, and specifically on the names of the 51 soldiers, Holyoke soldiers that left to fight in the Civil War, some of the names and the letters and some of the names are beginning to fade into the statue itself. Therefore, I would like to spend CPA funds, $25,000 to do a study to get a roadmap or a construction project, if you will, to go out to bid. And this study would tell what the work that needs to be done to restore the names, to clean the statue, to put a preservative on it if necessary, if that is what's done to the statue, and also to light the statue. So not only the statue, but the flag will be lit at night, and I think it'll be very dramatic, and it'll look nice and will have a nice effect. Plus, yes, more importantly, the names of the 51 men will be there for a long time. So this is a study that would, as a result, because of the statue and also the park itself is on a federal register, along with the Massachusetts Register and the Holyoke Register. But the fact that it's on a federal register means that we have to abide by the Department of the Interior's recommended law on how to preserve a statue, how to clean a statue, what are the methodology, and what you use to do it. We have to adhere to that because it's a federal statue, if you will. So to that end, this study would be a study that would make sure that when it goes out to bid for the work, that the work adheres to the policies and the recommendations of the Department of the Interior, which are required by law.
Mike, I think that's a good job answering the why. It makes a lot of sense. Chris, you want to add to that?
Yes, Mr. President, I do. So I just want to note that statue come next July would have been dedicated 144 years ago. So obviously the Mother Nature here in New England has provided some rough years for it. So, after 144 years, it definitely is time to do some significant maintenance. And, I would ask that you put yourself in a position of a descendant. You go up to that statue and you can't see the names of your ancestors. That does take away from the meaning of memorializing those 51 names. So that's all that I would add, Mr. President.
Thank you. Kip, did you want to add anything? Okay, Mike or Chris or Mike Sullivan, $25,000, is that a set figure, or is that something that, is the most, or a ceiling figure? How much do we think the study is actually going to cost?
I'm going to have to leave this to Chris.
So it's my understanding, based off of my conversations with Mike Falsetti, that whatever money is not utilized, that will go back to where it came from. So the money that it will take is what it's going to actually cost. But the 25 is just to make sure that you get over the hill, so to speak.
Okay, so we don't know the actual number until we go out and find someone to do the work, to do the study.
That is correct.
Okay, but you can only spend it on the study, nothing else. Okay. Okay, is there any other discussion from the chair or from the city council? Councillor Tallman?
Yeah, thanks to either Mike or Chris and any of my colleagues on the council. I recall about maybe 10 years ago, there was a woman named Miss Sears that actually had a fundraiser, and they were supposed to be doing some work on Lady Liberty several years ago. Is anybody aware of that and whatever happened to that funding or the money? Do you remember,
no,
Joe?
sir.
Okay.
I remember,
that, Joe?
but my memory is a little vague, Councillor Tallman.
I remember going to a fundraiser actually at the War Memorial. It might have been about 10 or 15 years ago. And she was a local artist, and her name was Sears. And they were funding the money for Lady Liberty to be actually refurbished. Maybe we can just see if we can contact something in the records to find out about that and find out what their plan was at the time. And I do go along with this. I think it's important to keep that statue cleaned up, and it's one of our probably finest statues in the city, and one of the greatest parks in Holyoke that we have to get those names to be seen. But that's just my thought in a long run. If we could try to find out, I believe her name was Sears, and she was doing fundraising to actually refurbish Lady Liberty.
Good point. I think, Chris, can you just check that for us?
Yes, Mr. President, I'll get with Councillor Tallman offline, and we'll get those point of contacts, and I'll start making some headway on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on Lady Liberty? Chair sees none. Everybody okay? Chair will entertain a motion on Lady Liberty.
Motion to approve the money for Lady Liberty.
Second.
Motion made second to recommend the approval of $25,000 for the paying of a study for the restoration of Lady Liberty. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair hears 5-0. Thank you. We have one more proposal. It's item number 6. This is a proposal, an award of $120,000 for the Holyoke Housing Authority in conjunction with Habitat for Humanity for the cost of 2 homes to be built on Jackson Street. Motion to take off the table for discussion.
So moved.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Again, Mike, you're the maker of the order. Do you want to lead off on this? We have Matt Manville, Mike Falsetti here to talk about this.
Yep.
And of course, Kip and yourself.
And
Sarah.
So this was really vetted out very well. I knew ahead of time what a lot of the concerns, both from the public hearings that we had for CPA and also other discussions we've had in similar topics within the council. The really nice thing about this, I think, is we're getting a huge bang for our buck on this. It's a $714,000 project that we put 120 in. Now, we know the price of 714 is very high, but that's because everything must be done at prevailing wage, which, once again, we know the obstacle there. The good thing is these properties will be paying taxes. They will be sold to first-time home buyers. They're going to be sold what appears to be market rate for that neighborhood. And those have always been kind of stumbling blocks, as far as having properties like this go off and come off the city books and not be revenue producing afterwards. And these will. So having said all of that, I'd turn it over to Mike and Sarah.
Mike, they're a duplex, right? Each unit is a duplex.
Well,
but let Mike answer.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Do you mind?
Matt Manville is
yeah, Matt.
Authority. Matt, please go.
Thanks. I appreciate it, Counselor. and thanks for the lead in, Councilor Sullivan. Very accurate. I appreciate the, and of course, the timing is perfect. As soon as I unmute my mic, I get a phone call. So, hold on, sorry.
We have a jar for that in the city council chambers. We're going to ask you to donate to it.
I'll have to put it in the jar. They will be they're going to be exactly a replication of what's happening up farther on Jackson Street. Councilor McGiverin, there'll be single family detached homes, just kind of filling in the sawtooth there. You know, I think this is a piece of property that's been vacant for as long as I've been at the Housing Authority, which is over 20 years. So we're excited about being able to kind of continue the home ownership down the street. Provides eyes on the park, so it has a lot of benefits to the neighborhood. I know that that we have a strong proponent in the city councilor from the ward. I think this is an important piece of work, and again, it will be putting property back on the tax rolls, which I think is critical to all of us.
The CPA is 120. What is Habitat Humanity? What is their budget?
So they're following their typical model where they'll be using sweat equity and doing fundraising, but some of this $120,000 will help to augment some of those funds. We'll be doing all the site preparation, digging the foundation, and preparing the work for them. We do have to get an A&R through the city, so we have actually already commissioned a survey, but we will be going through the planning board to get an approval not required. Currently speaking, it's one parcel. We'll be breaking it into 3. So it's, we'll be shouldering those costs for Habitat for Humanity. But again, their model will be that which they followed numerous times in the city, where they'll be doing it through sweat equity and donations.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And any questions? I see Councilor Murphy's hand up.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So first of all, I want to thank Matt, Sarah, and the Housing Authority. We did talk about when I first got on again. We went around and looked at various lots, and that was one that I believe is about 40 years vacant. There's been some concerns about activity in the park, and that would be a potential stabilizer in terms of having homeowners right there. I think it's a home run for the city. It's going to be a two tax-paying properties that's going to stabilize what has been a vacant lotted area for 40 years. And I want to make sure I thank Matt and Sarah and others at the Housing Authority. When I brought it up, they said they were looking already at it. They got to work with the Habitat for Humanity. And I think, once this one is done, I'll be making suggestions for some more, Matt. So get the good work done, and let's keep on trucking. I want this thing cleared up. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. The phone line's always open.
Councilor Tallman and Councilor Barley.
Yeah, I want to thank the Housing Authority. And I know, Matt, is this the area right on Chestnut Street?
Actually, it's the opposite side. It's right on Jackson between Maple and Resnick.
Right. And how many homes?
We're going to put 2. So the entirety of the parcel runs along Chestnut, but what we're going to do is face the 2 units towards the park with the idea that this would provide some eyes on that particular park, because like we said, there's unwanted activity that's happening there, and we figured if we got
right. So they'd be facing Jackson Street. Okay, I'm familiar with the area, and I think years ago, I know we looked at that, and I know Councilor Murphy, we talked about that area that was vacant for a number of years, and I'm really supportive of any areas of our city through the housing or Habitat or any agency that try to put homes, homes that are affordable for people in that neighborhood, and to put them on the tax rolls. I think that's a great area and a great spot. I'm very much supportive of the work you're doing there. So thank you very much.
Well, we appreciate you, Councilor Tallman. You do wonderful things for the Housing Authority, so we appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councilor Barley.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thanks to everybody from the Housing Authority and the CPA Committee for spending the evening with us. And I'll just speak to the chair to Matt. Matt, before I get to Matt, just to Kip, Kip, was this a unanimous vote at CPA?
You're muted, Kip.
I don't remember, Dave. If it wasn't, it was very close to unanimous. I don't think there was a no vote. Mike Falsetti,
Okay.
I think it was unanimous.
It was.
Okay, that's good. And then just some Matt. Matt, you know, I brought it up several times on the floor relative to HHA's application or CDBG, and relative to HHA's reserve account, which in your minutes, I think it was over $5 million. And then I know you had about a $500,000 transfer to MMDT. And so why can't we use funds from the reserve instead of CPA funds?
It's a good question, Councillor. My answer to you is that, just like Councillor Murphy had said, is that there's other things that we have our eye on. We are a participant in the city block where the church burned. We are actively enrolled and working in South Holyoke currently. So we have, and then we just invested over $500,000 in cyber apartments. So we are making every effort to improve every neighborhood that we have a touch in. And so we're trying to be judicious about how we're allocating our funds. And in addition to that, we are required and regulated by both DHCD and HUD to have minimum reserve levels to take on the concerns around, for example, COVID. We're recognizing lost revenue as it relates to rental income. And so we have to make sure that we're prepared for a rainy day. So when we say that $5 million is out there, I think that's due to, you know, our strong and intelligent fiscal planning, but it's not that that's just free cash. We certainly have to make sure that we are prepared for a rainy day, that we meet HUD and DHCD requirements, and then that we're able to participate in, for example, the South Holyoke development where we just applied for and will hopefully receive some community scale housing initiative. But that asked and required a match from the Housing Authority, and we're going to be able to do that because we've positioned ourselves in that position.
I think that the reserve is really evidence of excellent fiscal stewardship, because I think, Matt, you remember, and I know Mr. Falsetti remember, my friend Mike Falsetti remembers, certainly the fiscal condition of Holyoke Housing Authority a little while ago. Maybe it wasn't as strong as it is now, but I'm not going to get into a back and forth via Matt, but I am going to support this now. But when I heard your arguments loud and clear, and certainly DHCD and HUD has reserves, but has requirements for reserves. But I think you realize that too, and that's why the board was allowed the flexibility to take funds out of reserves and put it in the Mass Municipal Depository Trust. So you took $500,000 out of reserves and put it into a vehicle where you could earn more money, which is, you know, I generally support that. But your reserves, I think is evidence that they're pretty good shape by the fact that you took out $500,000 out of reserves and you moved it to MMDT. So I think your reserves are pretty good. But I only bring this up for the hope that, you know, I'm just a short timer here, Matt, you know, but the hope is just like with CDBG, when I see the same agencies, and this is to my friends on the CPA committee, the same agencies come again and again and again, it's my hope that we can use these funds not just judiciously, but, you know, equitably across, you know, not just to our favorite agencies. So just you raised a point that I wrote down, Matt. The diocesan land, where, if anywhere, are we on that? So the vote last year happened. What have we done with the diocese or with Room 1 relative to that property?
To be quite honest with you, the direction that we've received is to stay in a holding pattern. That would be a question better posed to them. I know that there's still I'm sorry?
Who's them?
Just, room one, the mayor and his office. I don't deign to provide an understanding of where the school debate stands. I simply am trying to plan for if in the event that a school does not go there, that the housing authority will be poised to move on that big vacant parcel. And so that's kind of the way I've been planning for it. But I can't tell you where the school debate stands currently.
No, but that's a fair answer, Matt, and I'm glad you said that. I'm glad we have that now for the public record on that, because I think that what you said speaks volumes, and I hope everybody's listening. Just my last question, Matt, and I appreciate the chairman just for allowing me to go slightly off topic, but it's relative to the housing authority. Matt, we had a pretty good order filed by a counselor who's with us tonight relative to pilot funds, and we the city government, we don't, as city council, we don't have much, well, we have no flexibility, although we proved that we have some backbone last year at our budget time when it came to pilot funds, and it looks like we're going to make some progress with HG&E. But when we received the communication from the auditor relative to HHA's pilot paid to the city of Holyoke, which I believe is south of $4,000. Matt, I just, without getting into the specifics, because we don't negotiate, and I know the chair would say, Bartley, knock it off, and so I'm not negotiating, but I want to get an understanding. Has anyone from room one or the city government raised, because they have raised the issue relative to what, so a counselor filed an order, some of these pilots have got to be reviewed. And so that order prompted a review from room one to HG&E. Has a similar discussion happened between room one and HHA relative to your pilot?
I think we've had, not necessarily with room one, but we've clearly had conversations with the city solicitor and conversations with the assessor's office. These are not similar to what you might find with a normal nonprofit in the community, but these are HUD regulated and specific agreements that have been in place for time immemorial, and are what we understand to be formula driven agreements. So I don't know how much wiggle room there really is, but I know that we have had conversations with the city solicitors, particularly over the last couple of years.
So that's what I'm trying to drive at is, and I think that was the point of that order, that we want to sort of see what kind of wiggle room there is, and see what, and how many units or how many Holyoke Housing Authority units are there exclusive of the Jackson the Jackson Parkway homes? How many public housing units do we have at this point?
We have just a little bit short of 1,000 units.
All right, and then with Section 8, what do we have?
Well, that's different, because you got to remember Section 8 is going through private landlords that do in fact pay taxes.
So what do we have for Section 8 then?
About another 1,000 units.
Okay.
Some of those are outside of the community of Holyoke, but somewhere in that range.
Okay,
but again, that's not really relevant to the conversation of pilot, because that could be a building owned by Councillor Sullivan, and he would be in fact paying taxes on his property.
Oh, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. It just I appreciate your patience. I just want to get it, because we don't get a chance to get you here before us that often, and that's really on us, not on you, because I know you would come willingly. But while we had you here, I just want to get a little more in depth. I do appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bartley. Councillor Tallman.
I was just going to say, move the question, like Councillor Grenier would say. I think we're getting off topic here a little bit, and I think it's important. I respect Councillor Bartley, but
I think Councillor Tallman's not had dinner yet.
Yes, I second Tallman's motion.
Councillor Sullivan, you had your hand up. Want to wrap this up?
Yeah, just to help wrap it up and to clarify one piece of the question that Councillor Bartley answered. Let's all remember, CPA, the funds are divided into three buckets, if you would: housing, historic, and open space. So were we not to, and as far as other agencies coming forward, we can't control the fact that no other agencies come forward. That's out of our hands. But as far as the money in the bucket, if we don't spend that money in the bucket, 10% has to be set aside in each one of these categories. So I'm going to use some rough numbers. Kip, you can correct me if you want, but we have $500,000, 10%, 50,000 is going to be set aside. Now that has to be spent on that, or just set aside and not spent all rolled over to the next year or to the next year to the next year. So really, of this 120,000, 50,000 would be set aside automatically anyways. And that number could be 55,000. I mean, I'm roughing it out for you, but that's one of the reasons I think this is a good one, rather than just set it aside. We did have something come before us. Any other agency could have presented anything, but this was the only one before us that made this kind of fit all the other criteria that was given to us by the voters and by the members of the public. So that's it.
Okay, on the motion.
I think it's a good point to remind us of the 3 categories. Last year, we did the Valley Opportunity Project. Those properties are on the tax rolls now and doing very well. And I think the housing part, we got to keep in mind that this is what we'd like to see from CPA, is projects that put, homes and property on the tax rolls, especially vacant land from zero going into the tax rolls is a big plus in my humble opinion. If there's no further discussion, the chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the award to.
Motion made second to approve this award of $120,000 would be the Housing Authority working with the Habitat Humanity Project. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
The unanimous, I believe, 5-0. This recommendation with the other 2 will go to the City Council next Tuesday for a final vote. Thank you, everybody, for participating this evening. Sarah, I know you're here to keep everybody in line, and Matt's shaking his head that he couldn't do it without you. Well, Mike, thank you as a commissioner. Kip, thank you as the chair of the job you do, and all the city councilors. Stay safe, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Motion to
adjourn.
Motion is made second to adjourn. All those in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
We sit zoomed adjourned.